Hello, fellow bassists, and welcome back to the final of my 4 free lessons that I'm offering at my Bass Player University so you can see exactly what goes on here. See if it's the right fit for you. And I do believe it will be. We not only have a lot of fun, but we're really growing as a group. I'm growing as a teacher. They're growing as students. And we're all becoming better bass players, and that's the point. But if you recall, something I said in each and every of the lessons so far, and something I've been striving for my entire teaching career, which has been over 25 years, I want to make each bass player their own individual, unique self as a bass player. It's far more important that we have everyone become their own bass player then we have a bunch of, relatively speaking, the same bass player. Because that would make the world pretty boring. Everyone is completely unique in this world. Every bass player is completely unique in this world, even if they have the same gear. But that's a conversation for a whole nother day. And this final lesson here is going to discuss several things. Most importantly, things that have to do with technique and a few other terminology things, a few other definitions, or maybe just clearing up some words that have more than one meaning, musically speaking. And why don't we start right there? What about the word chromatic? What if I asked chromatic versus diatonic? What does that mean? When we play diatonic, I've actually played that for you several times already. It's just a major scale. Every note in this scale is diatonic to that scale. Now I'm going to make one of them chromatic. Now I added one note that was chromatic to the key. Kind of slipped in something called a passing tone, a note that goes in between two notes that are in the scale, and it passes in between. Now that's a note that is chromatic. There's also the chromatic scale. Chroma, meaning color in Greek. I'm half Greek, so I know a little bit about these things. And the chromatic scale is all 12 notes. Back to the octave. So, depending on how you look at it, chromatic can mean completely different things. And I think it was Coltrane. Some jazz guy said the only scale is the chromatic scale. So in reality, maybe that is actually true. All 12 notes existing at all times. But that also is a conversation for another day. So I want to discuss something that should happen very early in a bass player's life. How hard do you actually need to push to get the sound that you want? Because I see a lot of this. And what I also see a lot of is not necessarily a very stressed looking hold where fingers are bending and things don't look quite right. But I notice that it seems okay. And then the pressure being placed this direction towards the fingerboard or the fretboard, whatever you'd like to call it, it's so much in this way that there's nowhere to go but down. And I notice a lot of this. Tell me if this looks familiar, or if you don't do it, maybe you've seen someone else do it. This automatically means that there's too much pressure. This also means you're wasting energy. How are we going to play fast lines unless you use less energy? This goes for the pluck as well. If I was to play something ultimately quite fast, my plucking really can't be doing much. My left hand is also not doing much if I'm flying around. So how do we figure out how hard we need to push? Every instrument does have its own little differences. The fret height could be slightly different. You might be using a different gauge of string. You may be using a different type of string. Flats and rounds, they don't quite feel the same, obviously, and they work differently when you push them. It's not the same thing. Here is how I find it. And I think it's a very good thing for you to try at home as well. Find your note. I happen to be on the 6th fret of E here. This is B flat. This is probably easier to figure out on the E string, by the way, just because of the physics of it all. So I would do it on the E string first. Push in a way, and by the way, if you push enough, you can change the note. Let's see if we can hear it. I'm pushing in the center of the fret, which is not best. You should be at the edge, always right towards the, not on it, but right behind the end of the fret. I'm going to go to the center and push as hard as I can. I'm not bending. I'm actually pushing it in. Because when you fret, you're not technically touching the wood of the fingerboard. The 2 frets are holding the string higher. So that's your goal, is that you push just enough. Now, how do we figure it out? Push relatively hard. Slowly release the pressure from that finger. Slowly release the pressure away while plucking relatively rapidly until you hear the buzzing. Starting, I'm using more pressure than I would. I'm releasing slowly. Slowly. There it is. Now I'm pushing so much lighter than when I started. Way lighter than when I started. Just to do one more time so you can get the idea. Listen for when the buzz starts happening. Now the string is not being pushed enough. Push. Get yourself right back to where it was before the buzz started. There's the buzz. You hear it? No buzz. You'll also notice that technique-wise, I have a relatively flat finger profile. This allows me to provide muting no matter what I'm doing. Whether it's from here, or from here, or from here, I have muting available at all times. Also, if I want to do a left-hand mute, which resembles a palm mute, I can actually do that. I used this. You may have noticed me doing this from time to time. And I do. So, 2 little technique things for you. How to push lighter. This should be accompanied by plucking lighter as well. You don't really have to pluck very hard at all to get a sound. Now, believe it or not, slap can be the same. Yes, you can. Sure, you do the Thunder Thumbs Larry Johnson from Brothers Johnson and Michael Jackson, other things. He hits like a maniac. And it sounds amazing, by the way. But he's in complete control. It's not for everybody. When you slap, you can use minimal energy. See, at the end, I got a little more aggressive, right? But just messing around so you can see that you don't have to have an unbelievably hard hit to get slap tone. It depends on how you approach it. But the goal with slap is that you actually hit the string with your thumb. You actually thumb or slap it into the frets, so it bounces off the frets. There's a fun little technique at the end there. So my point here is that you don't need a ton of energy to get any sound. When you're popping, instead of rapidly really pulling as hard as possible, you should actually allow the string to just fall off as you're making your way out. You'll find a lot more tone will come from this, and you can figure out exactly how much of your hands you need, so that way when the energy does need to come out for more aggressive playing, you actually have energy to do it. The other part of this is you can actually start quiet and then you have somewhere to go. Songs should grow. Bass players need to grow with their instrument. This is all part of how to be a great bass player. Your technique is almost one of the most important things. It might not be the very most important, but without good technique, you're not getting much done. So it's up there in the level of importance. And I think other than lacking fundamentals, I think very good technique, I'm not saying amazing over-the-top technique, but very good technique is often lacking in one way or another, whether it's that you've never really done alternate plucking strictly, or it's that you're pushing and squeezing too hard and getting a lot of bends, or that you're plucking too hard to begin with, and you can't play longer, faster songs because of that. You tire quickly. As I mentioned in a previous lesson here, I've done 5-6 hour shows, right? Doesn't mean it was all extreme metal, and I've played that stuff too, trust me, a lot more than most others that I know, as a matter of fact. So I am good to ask about any style, and I think that's another reason why the university here really does benefit from having a very varied, diverse group of people in it, because I've been a varied and diverse bass player for so many different people, for so many different styles, and as a teacher as well. So also remember that my volume is not all the way up right now, which I don't always recommend, but I'm trying to keep everything at a level where my voice and my bass are at the right, frequency and tone for everyone to listen to, the right volume. So your volume matters. When you want to pluck extra light and be heard, raise the volume. If you practice without an amplifier and you have an actual solid body electric bass guitar, if you don't plug in, you're going to be plucking harder just to hear it. Plugging in allows you to play with better technique. Turning your volume up allows you to hear how your bass really sounds at full volume, and then it gives you the chance to pluck lighter and actually interact with your bass at a much more give and take level, as opposed to you just giving a ton of energy. All of this really matters. And maybe we can just end with, since I know slap is usually on everyone's plate at some point, why don't we end with a little more slap and just discuss the ins and outs of how it should look and the kinds of techniques you can use to get better tone to begin with. I'm going to change my settings a little bit. I'm actually going to do a little mid-scoop, see what I can get out of this thing. Need a little more sizzle to it now, right? Good. Don't mind it. Good enough. So you'll notice that I have my thumb coming through the string. The primary reason is that, as you may have noticed in the previous one, I was doing double thumb. And sometimes I add a pointer for triple. You can actually use this for a wide variety of reasons. But primarily, we're going to work on just a simple down thumb. You'll notice that I'm actually landing on or going past the A string that I'm actually connecting with. Right now, I'm fretting the 5th fret of A. So your best bet when you're getting good at this and you're starting to really get into it is that you don't use the thumb as a pluck in any way. I am actually just allowing my wrist and my entire arm to work the action. This muscle shouldn't be quite as strong as this one. If you use this one, you should be able to get more longevity out of it. By doing this, you're already on your way up. I am actually, at the moment of this, I'm already getting my pointer underneath the string I want to pop. You'll also notice that my thumb is actually where the fingerboard is. I want to make sure I hit it in where I'm hitting the frets. And then when I pop, I'm right there. Slightly more volume. Right? It's as if I'm holding a very, very large pick. So as you can see, And this is just me giving you an idea of how the tone should be and the techniques that come from it. But there's a number of other things that come from this, of course. And you can take it as far as you need to. When it's time, we'll make sure you're ready to take it to the next level. And that's a big part of what goes on here. I can see your progress. And you can see your own through my weekly progress reports. And you can get an idea of what this is all about by, now that you're on my email list, I'll be sending something at least once a month, inspiration, some tips, some ideas, things you might not have ever thought of. I hope that this final lesson has given you a way to approach the instrument with technique and some food for thought regarding different things as far as how to fret, how to slap even. And this is just the bare bones beginning. And to leave it with one last thing, you don't necessarily have to pass through. You can actually come right off. So there's a bunch of ways to do it. And everyone has their own little ebb and flow. Everyone's hands are a little different size. And there's always little things to work out. But overall, this is pretty much how it goes. So don't forget, practice plugged in, headphones if you need them. And always work on your tone, your timing, your technique, the 3 T's. These will be paramount in you being able to not only help yourself feel like you're accomplishing more and more, but it'll get you the gig too. And it'll help you feel more confident in your own, if you have your own home studio. It'll help you feel more confident in what you're doing. Well, folks, I really hope you enjoyed me taking you down a path with these 4 different free lessons. And as you can see, it wasn't a example 1, example 2, example 3, follow me. It was more of a, here are things that you should be thinking about right now. And here is how we do things here at George Messa's Bass Player University. So again, I really hope you enjoyed this. Stay tuned. I will always be giving out all kinds of fun little videos and tips and inspirations and ideas at my Facebook, at my TikTok, at my email list. I will be sending things that will be exclusive for the email list, as a matter of fact. There will be unlisted YouTube videos that you'll get the link for. So thank you again. I had fun with you here. I hope you did as well. And me and everyone in my Bass Player University are hoping that you are next. Thank you so much.